And even, I think you mentioned it yesterday, and I thought it was so profound. Something that I haven't had, just tying back to friendship.
Yes.
And when you said it, and when you're saying it now, I'm connecting, because you actually said that you don't have any friends who are not in happy marriages.
I don't.
And I'm still shocked.
Yeah.
And I mean, my friends may watch this, but calling out anyone.
Yeah. All the couples I know
and for
are
a
really
minute,
good,
I was
happy.
like, what kind of life am I living? Like, which environment am I in?
Right.
Because that means then it's possible to just to be happy and content, and
and it's actually really
and
sad.
everyone around you to be in the same space.
And remember what I also said to you about those people actually work on their relationship.
And I think we
very
should talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, about how my friends have wonderful relationships.
It does work.
It does.
It doesn't just come flowing from somewhere.
Even for the self-love, like I had to actually practice. I even did the cheesy mirror work, standing in the mirror and saying I love you and stuff like that. It's looking yourself dead in the eye. Well, it's just kind of like really
cheesy things are the ones that
I'm that person.
Cheesy and cliche.
I'm talking to myself in the mirror.
And I think especially like for my opinion, especially marriage, because see, every other thing, I think it was when we did Brides for Life that came up, that every other thing you do the coursework first, then you get the certificate. You go to school, you graduate, you get your degree, you go to 4 years for your degree, then you get your certificate. But marriage is the only one you get the certificate first.
That is so true.
It's backwards.
Then you go to class.
What is happening? So for us, because my husband and I, our contract, we said 70 years. After that, we can renew. We can review.
Wow.
Is it working after 70 years? Yes.
I love it.
I mean, it must be working after 70. I was thinking of renewing every year.
I love the long
So like now, we say we are 5. We have 65 more to that, So we look at it like that. And then every time there's something, like a marriage course or something like that, which I'm grateful for, because sometimes ladies are really into it, but now convincing the spouse is like, what are these things? We're just like that. We just be, But he's really,
into
like,
it.
okay, we go for, so we finished one that was like a couple months, once a month or something like this. And then also because it gives you opportunities, because maybe there are assignments, so you have to go on a date to do those assignments. And then there are conversations which you can bring up, not in a heated situation. Because sometimes you learn about your partner in a crisis and you're not in the best state of mind to understand them, and that, okay, yes, we're from 2 different situations, backgrounds, everything. But when situations come up in crisis, you sort of go into defense mode and you're trying to prove your point. But see, when you have these different classes that are curated and say, okay, we're talking about family, we're talking about finances, we're talking about all these other different things, then you go on a date. So it's a nice situation, but they're really hard, deep questions. But you can have those conversations without that tension. So that when a situation comes up, I mean, we've already discussed it. So we've already discussed it.
So you know how to deal.
So then I think a lot of
policy and procedure.
So I think that's why a lot of people, and maybe our generation, I mean, here we've tried, there's some situations we really tried to help, that it's some sad situations. It's sad when people ask us, how is marriage? You're like, joy is the best decision we ever made. But people, they look at us and go,
they're from Mars.
Even me, I'd be looking at you.
So it's sad, but you see, it's that a lot of other situations, it's sad to say, but like you're saying, it's intentional. You have to actually put in the work. But when you say put in the work, a lot of people think like it's actual physical, tiring work. But for us, we always say, are we friends?
Yes.
You can't be married to someone for a very long time if they're not your friend. Are they the first person you think, hey, what happened today? Can't believe what happened today. Let me just tell you the story. So it's just that sort of just easy friendship where it's not. Everything else builds on that. But when everything fades away and, are we friends? Yani, we are now in this bed sitter because we've lost all our money, we have nothing. But hey, let's just drink this tea.
So are you also saying it's how you started?
How
you start.
Yes.
I'm asking for myself.
It is okay even to ask for a friend. Even to ask for a friend.
I would say yes. How you started. For me, I had a rule. It was a very silly rule. People never used to understand it. But my rule was I can't date someone who has not been my friend for 3 years.
I love that.
And so everyone comes and says, oh, can I be your boyfriend? But I've not known you for 3 years. How are we being? You know? Because for me, I felt like with relationships, there's tension. You're trying to put your best foot forward. So you can't really know a person because they're really trying to, only show their good side. But if you're just friends, you just take me as I am, I take you as you are. Yeah. And then somehow it just sort of came up. Then you realize you have such a good friendship from before. This is just an elevated situation. Now it just means, now when we're married, when we go on a date, I don't have to go home. We can just continue with our stories,
You have the license.
Exactly, not where you have to go home quickly, Yeah. So now it's just a continuation. Okay. Yeah, so I would say yes, it's how you started.
Wow. And I love that because, I think that when people get into a romantic relationship and it's headed towards marriage, if you don't have the foundation of the friendship, then it gets so hard to have certain conversations. And I think that love is a series of conversations. If you think about it, there's even in my mother tongue that when you talk to each other, you love each other. I've just loosely translated it. Talking to someone means you love them. And that's why when people stop talking, then many times it's crumbling down. So I think one life skill around love.
Talking we all wonder when it's like when there's that quiet space and things are just a bit weird. It's like just doesn't feel good, right?
This person in so many years, and even when you meet, you're like you have nothing in common, and you're wondering what happened.
Yes, and it's interesting now. You reminded me of Reds for Life, which is a program that is coming back. I'm high pressure now, but I remember. Thinking a lot about how do you keep the conversations going when you don't feel like talking.
That's where you get into service, right?
Yes. And it reminds me, two things that it reminds me of. One is a friend's grandparents who celebrated 50 years and 50 years wedding anniversary. Yeah? Wow. And so they were asking, so what's the secret? And the grandma was saying, well, for me, it was just habit. That every time your grandfather came in, I had a basin of warm water for him to soak his feet. I was like, well.
You tell the
I honestly,
it's so beautiful.
The feet of my man.
It's so beautiful. Imagine, even just
it's like the cheesiest thing.
It's wonderful. But that was it. So he knew every time I come home.
He's even looking forward to
exactly.
the water.
So love is also a series of micro habits. It's
so
little
talking
habits.
and micro habits.
Little habits.
I really like serving my man food, for example, which I find really shags. Like, I'm like, I'm so shags inside.
You have the legs coming out
all day. You guys came and saw me being like, awesome serving shots.
But you see now we have to rebrand. I love is service. And then it brings me to the issue of boundaries. And I find that with respect to romantic love, I think one of the things that I learned earlier also when we were dating was from my older friends, and they would say, you know what, make sure you date in the open. And I was like, what does that mean? And they're like, try and avoid spaces where it's just the two of you, because the heartbeat is really racing, And what happens is, I'm trying to put this in a very, PG-friendly way. The heart is racing. I mean, when I think back, when you're dating the person you love, even him touching your hand is like electric current. So why are you putting yourself in a place where you could light a fire? And you don't have the license, which I hope you understand. So the idea of purity and keeping your relationship pure is so important. And people would say, "Oh my goodness, what do you mean? How far is too far?" Just don't have the conversation of how far is too far. Just keep away, because first, there are conversations that are very hard to have when you've already given in, given of yourself. Something when you don't have the license of the marital license, which is actually the license to give your whole self, body, heart, mind, and soul, right? But also, I found that you have to really go against the current. I remember guys who tell me, "Kwani, you're going to be a nun?" I'm like, I don't know. And because I don't know, we're not doing this, And thank God.
Yeah, and you just
when I look back, I'm like, thank God I didn't get married to those guys. Yeah. Because values, you see, you're also able to assess values when you don't have the stickiness of that connection. You see. And that's not to say, because it's really, this show is also to give hope. That if, for example, someone has already given of themselves and you don't have the license, you can also retract and say, you know what, actually, I really want us to start off on the right foot.
Yeah.
How about secondary virginity, How about this? Because you see, when people do get married, there are times when someone is unwell. There are times when, and it could be any of the two. And so if you had already practiced that self-control, that self-mastery, then you actually find, like, I really love my husband because, oh my goodness, even now when I'm sick, I can see other dimensions of love that may not necessarily be the physical intimacy type, of that type. But this other kind of love is even better. Because you think about 70 years, 100 years, there'll be so many seasons. So how about when we're dating, to think about where we are dating? And then the beauty is when you date in the open, you also help your friends or family to give you that perspective. You see, and they'll say, oh, there's a way he was shouting there when he was angry. I think you just need to check that. There's a way he looked down at his mom. You need to. Let me now talk for the guys, because the guys are also saying they're no good girls. There's a way she was staring as she was serving you. What's that? There's a way she's raising her voice when you correct her. Maybe you want to have that conversation.
Dating in the open, that's where this generation doesn't date in the open. That's why you find
I don't think this generation dates.
To begin with.
Okay, maybe.
I think they hook up.
We need to redefine dating.
They hook up.
Friendship.
They hook up for physical intimacy. That's it.
Yeah.
People
so
don't date.
This generation who are in this mindset.
It's a great question.
I think that is
because they are watching.
I think I don't know, for some reason I feel like the younger people struggle even more to have that self-love.
Yeah.
For example, anti-aging cream is being sold. The most people, 26 is the highest anti-aging cream.
At 26.
Yeah.
The skin is so supple. Why do you need an anti-aging? Because you're looking at IG and thinking,
exactly. They want to look like a filter. They want to look like a filter. But I think social media has completely.
It certainly has.
I never had to think about
social media.
It is what other people think, that whole thing. But then now what other people think on a global scale or like online or whatever is even scarier.
Yeah.
So I think the hooking up or whatever, not dating, I don't think a lot of people are even planning to get married.
No, it's too much work. A lot of them are like, it's too much work. The way I see you guys,
I think they'd rather have a baby without
Why do you have to be accountable? You have to be accountable.
But if you think it's because there are no examples, maybe around
that's
them.
it. Their parents, all the parents, all the friends' parents, everyone's pretending the men are cheating, the women are suffering. Yeah. Or they get married and they just suffer and then they're going to suffer, right?
Enough examples. And,
right?
And the good, and my argument always is the good marriages or relationships
never get to the media.
Never get to the media, and even they don't talk about it as much because maybe they're trying to protect.
It's also their business. Yeah, it's personal.
But I wish there were more because then we learn from examples. Even as adults.
It is true.
Yeah. Like I'm learning from you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay.
Yeah. But I think even to have a healthy relationship, this thing of starting right and having a healthy relationship starts really with having I think the more I'm in the habit of filling my own cup.
Yes.
I can be in a relationship, but I'm not dependent on it.
So
my cup fills itself.
For example, practically.
That if they don't love me anymore, I won't feel, I'm the one giving my own self. By my thoughts, by how I nurture myself, by how I support myself, how I take care of myself, where I take myself. Right?
I think also your relationship with God is really
my powerful. Relationship with God. I have 1 hour a day in the morning and nothing will get in the way of that. That's where I sort out all my stuff. I know He loves me, so I'm okay.
You're okay.
Yeah, so nothing even becomes, it could be a crisis. Most of my crisis is me doubting myself. But if somebody, I'm not in a relationship so that I can get, and hopefully the person I'm in a relationship with is also filling their cup, and then our cups overflow, and we have more over whatever. And someone was telling me how, talking about self-care, that they used to think that you use energy, and then you're like exhausted, so you go home and rest for 2 weekends, where you're not supposed to lose energy. You're supposed to be topping up energy, in fact, just on like a daily. Instead of even losing, you top up. So for me, maybe it's meditation, walking, music, dancing. What are the things that are actually topping up, not draining? And then you're supposed to give the people the extra. You're not supposed to wait. Finish up, then fill yourself again. Right? Yeah. So it's like a daily practice, right? So even your reason for relationship, or what your needs, or what you're getting, or whatever, they're not that hectic, because you're the one taking care of yourself, and then they can enjoy you more. Actually, I think they get to enjoy you more.
Actually, the attraction
elevates.
Because they're like, wait, she's so happy.
She's glowing.
What is this? She's drinking these days. It's just water.
That's why sometimes people say, like, when you get married and getting married to the right person, that you start looking more
for sure.
It's true. But you agree that you still have to start with yourself.
Yes. I think that's the agreement.
Yes.
These songs that tell you complete me are a lie. So also it doesn't help that we listen to all those songs that say, when you come into my life, you complete me.
It sounds nice on paper.
But you see, that's key. If you listen to those songs time and time again, then you're looking for someone to come and complete, as opposed to compliment.
I think we also forget that we are spiritual beings.
That makes a world of a difference. That the soul,
but you need to just keep replenishing spiritually.
Whether
we agree or not, we are spiritual beings.
For sure. I love that point, because I think it's one of the saints who said, "My soul is restless until it finds itself in you, O Lord." So I think that when we don't recognize that the love, our soul needs love, it clings onto something that's not good for it. It'll always cling. First of all, that's a fact. And so when you think about it, if it's not clinging on God, it's going to cling onto money, social media, drinks, something.
I like those ones. So, money, social media, drinks.
And there are many others. And unfortunately, then that becomes like an idol. And so idolatry, which we read about in those days, we think it's for those days, but we could be idolizing something, because we're not filling our cup with the source of He who made us.
I've always thought that. I mean, so, guys with the range, the typical guy with the range of a sport or whatever, the guys who really want to have a lot of flash, you can see it in them, in their designer, this, that, and the other. I always think they just really want to be loved. I mean, that is the only reason he wants to accumulate all of this stuff. And it must be so annoying if it doesn't work, right?
Usually it doesn't, because you attract people who also want that flash.
They just want you for your money.
Actually, but maybe they don't even know what is being
self-awareness.
And that brings us to the issue of self-awareness. So to recognize, this is what I need now, and this is where I'll get it from. And it's okay to ask for help. And going back to that point of that young girl, I remember telling her, you need to speak to someone, you need to get yourself out of this. But there are some patterns that she needed to break. So whether it's a therapist or someone else, so that she gets to a point where she can heal, and then now move forward. I want to finish with a funny story. Friends for Life, one of the things that we, and I think in the Your Next Best Self conference, I talked about, I think, the first edition. And I said, well, how about we take a tray challenge? Guys are like, oh, so what's a tray challenge? So I said, how about you take a tray and cover it with a tray cloth? Also, guys are like, a tray what? If you don't have a tray cloth, a soft mat. And then, just try something, and then serve yourself, lay the tray. So the first thing, if there's someone that you live with, serve them, serve them on the tray challenge, as opposed to just giving them. Because it takes the glass of water, put it on a tray.
Or tell them
because
go
it
to the
shows.
kitchen.
Well, still, but show them that you've taken care. And it's fascinating. So when one lady went home and did it, and her husband was like, "Are you okay? Is there something that
you
you
want
put in that
something?
cup? Wait, what have you put in that cup?" Hey, they were coming from far. And she's like, no. And I told them, I warn you that if you've never done it, you're going to get shock. There'll be shock therapy for the rest, but be consistent. And it was so interesting because he was like that. And she's like, no, I just want to serve you. Okay, so she served him. And the next day she did it. And I said, let's try it for 30 days. And because their marriage was somewhere not so good, the trade challenge did it. Love is service. It's not a joke.
Like the trade challenge.
And I want to encourage us, even do it for yourself. See, because sometimes
so
you're
those are the
thinking
things that I
about
do for myself.
someone else. Yeah. How about instead of eating from a plastic container, because you live on your own, set the table and just honor yourself by
sit on the
nourishing
table
yourself
alone.
It's okay. It's part of becoming your friend, your own friend. And set that table, because you see, these habits we do for ourselves is how we will love others.
Yeah.
So, trade challenge.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So it's very effective.
Experience.
This alumni, they know.
Yes.
Great.